Hey folks, welcome to the Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel. Did you know the era of low interest rates are over? Are over, says the media is telling us right now. So your mortgage payments are going to go up if you don't do something. The era of low interest rates on mortgages are over, everybody. So you need to panic. You need to do something. What that is to do, I don't know, but you do need to do something because the era is over. So I want to share with you this article from Realtor.com. Now, look, I use Realtor to look at houses and all that, but man, you got to understand what is clickbait and what you got to be careful of. Let me close this out. The North American Home Builders Association, Realtor.com, the Realtors Association, all these guys have an incentive to get you to act. That doesn't mean they're wrong or anything like that, but I'm just telling you, if you look deep into the weeds here and you remember what happened in 2007 and 8, the economists that we had from Realtor, was it the Home Builders Association or the National Association of Realtors? I don't know. But the chief economist, I think it was the National Association of Realtors, said the market was primed to keep going up and up and up. There was no concern there at all. And then it just tanked. The issue isn't that these are bad guys or anything. The issue is economists don't know what's going to happen. They just don't know. And so you always got to be careful before you start making decisions based on clickbait headlines like this. It's a good art. It's a good, literally, it's good clickbait. I clicked on it. I said, whoa, the era of low mortgage rates is over. And here I am looking at it. Here I am going to talk about it. Doesn't mean these are bad people. Christina Rexroth, that name sounds familiar to me. I got to look her up because I think I've read some of her stuff before, and that's fine. I just want to be very, very cautious to you, though. Just because the rates are creeping up, and let's take a look at the 10-year. Remember, the 10-year is the proxy for interest rates across the board, okay? So we always want to look at the my phone is, I tell you, I need a new phone. There we go. So we always want to look at the 10-year is doing. Now, you're not going to finance a mortgage with a 10-year Treasury bond, but it's still at 3.07. So it hasn't changed a whole lot today. Over the last couple of days, like I said, when it broke 3%, I did a video on that because that was the first time in 7 years it broke 3. It's still sitting at 3.07. Yes, that's not an insignificant run from 3.01 the other day, but it's not like breaking through the roof as we see here today. Now, what I want to caution you on, when you have a mortgage, and you know how I feel about having a mortgage, that number one thing you can do for financial planning and retirement happiness is to have no debt, a mortgage in particular. But let's just say you have one. Say you're 47 like I am. You're like, oh, should I lock in a rate? Should I refinance? Should I go ahead and buy because all this, that, and the other? Well, let's think about what's happening here. When you buy a mortgage, you're locking in your money and you're locking in for essentially 360 payments. All right, 360 payments, i.e. 30 years. The vast majority of those first 7 to 8 to 9 years are going to be interest. So if you've been in your loan for, say, 7, 8, or 9 years, you've paid a lot of that interest already. So to consider locking in or refinancing before the rates go up or whatever. Now, if you're buying a house, yeah, you got to be careful. But if you have a mortgage outstanding, maybe you had an adjustable, maybe you had a 15-year. I don't know what it is. Maybe you had a 30-year, think about 15. And you're like, I better do something quickly. Remember, the bulk of your interest is paid in, let's just say, the first 10 years of the loan. So it completely depends on how long you've been in that mortgage before you start thinking about if it's worth it to refinance. And just because a mortgage banker, my friend, says we can reduce your payment, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing. I guarantee I can reduce your payment if I can stretch your payment out over 100 years. I guarantee. So if you already got 8 years behind you and you're in year 22 or a year 8 going into year 9, you got 22 years left of the mortgage, and I come up to you and I say, look, I can lower your payment by $350 a month. I'm just throwing another 8 or 9 years on the length of your mortgage. That's not a trade-off you should make. It's just not. And you can say, well, I don't want to get locked into a higher rate later on if you're in an adjustable rate mortgage. Just hold tight. Look at this stuff before you act. Let's just say you have a 2% adjustable rate mortgage. And right now the 30 year is paying 4%. And you're like, oh no, I don't want the 30 year to jump up because I want to lock it in. All right. So what's going to happen in your 2% adjustable rate mortgage when it's able to adjust? Maybe it just goes up 1 year, 1% max. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe it can go up 2% max. I don't know, but let's just say it goes up 2% max. You're sitting at 2% right now. it goes up 2% max, which is a pretty significant jump, I might add. Well, let's just say it did. Well, then you're going to go from 2 to 4. That's it. Without any refinancing, any closing costs, any stupid title search, and that is a pet peeve of mine, any of that. It's going to go to 4%. And you're not going to have to redo the loan whatsoever. You're not going to take a 15-year, make it, or a 22-year left that you have left on it, make it 30. Nothing like that. You're going to be sitting at 4%. And I can hear people saying, but what if the rates go up again? And now in a year, I'm going from 4 to 6. That could happen, I suppose. I highly suspect that's not going to happen. Now, don't look, do what you got to do. Don't quote me, but you're talking from 2 to 4 to 6 in a matter of 3 years. When's that ever happened? We had significant inflation in the late 70s and early 80s. So that's a fact. We haven't seen anything like that since in terms of inflation with the interest rates going up since basically mid-70s, really. And then just fell like a brick in water when Paul Volcker and Ronald Reagan took the arrows and they said, we got to stop it. And they've done that ever since. That doesn't mean it can't happen again. That is the only really time that we have historically where the interest rates just really blew through the ceiling. And then they came back through the basement, essentially, which is where we've been for the last 20 years now. So the idea of taking a 2% mortgage, refinancing when it costs $15,000, $20,000 at a 4%, when it's just going to go to 4% anyway, just does not sound that spectacular to me, especially if they're going to add another 7 or 8 years on your mortgage, okay? You got to be careful. And what you got to look at is not your monthly payment, the amortization schedule, the amortization. Get that terminology ingrained in your head. Amortization. How much of your payment is going to principal? How much of your payment is going to interest? The more to principal, the more you're bringing to your net worth. The more to interest, well, that's the more you're paying the bank. So if we can get more and more and more to principal, you're going to be better off. That's a fact. And the way we get more and more to principal is, generally speaking, by hanging tight with your mortgage interest that you already have. If you've been in for a couple more, if you've already been in it for more than a couple of years. Now, if rates went down, that's a different story. But rates aren't going down; they're going up. In fact, the era of low mortgage rates is over. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it. Now, here's the second point. So be careful on refinancing. Now, what if you're thinking about buying a home? I want to point this out to you. So remember, I talked about this in the last video when I said the 30 years are going up. You have a fixed amount of income you can dedicate to your housing cost. Let's say it's $2,000 a month. All right, so right now interest rates are low, and we'll say of that $2,000 a month, $500 is going to interest and $1,500 is going to principal. All right, $500 is going to interest, $1,500 is going to principal. Now the interest rates have gone up, and now $1,000 is going to interest and $1,000 is going to principal. What that means is you can't afford the same cost of the house. The house price that you have your eye on, that you are able to afford, it must drop in value to compensate for the increase in the interest. If that house costs $200,000, just using that for example, and $500 of that payment was going to interest and the $1,500 of that payment was going to principal, all right, now the house can't cost $2,000, $200,000 if $1,000 of that payment is going to interest and $1,000 is going to principal. It can't. That same payment does not buy the same cost of the house. It doesn't. I hope that kind of makes sense. Just remember, as the interest rates go up, the prices go down on bonds, but the prices also go down on real estate because the cost to finance the property, it just goes higher. It goes higher significantly. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I know that's probably kind of confusing, but interest rates go up on bonds, the price on bonds goes down. You got to get that ingrained. Tattoo that on your forehead. Interest rates up, prices down. But it's not just bonds. It's also real assets as well. All right, so here's a guy. Mortgage rates this week jumped to the highest level since 2011, signaling a shift from a period of ultra cheap loans to a higher rate environment that could slow some home price appreciation and squeeze first-time buyers. The average rate for the 30-year fix rose to 4.61 from 4.55. Not a significant raise there. This jump reflects an abrupt departure from a long period of declining rates that began during the financial crisis. Rates bottomed out in 2012 at 3.3. All right, so it began at the bottom of the financial crisis. Now, late 2012, basically November, December 2012, was 3 years since the end of the financial crisis. Is there any explicit correlation there? Nope. And clocked in as high as 3.99 as recently as January. So here we are in May. Rates are at 3.99 in January, and now they're at 4.61 today. So that's, not insignificant, but let's, think about that. 0.61 divided by 3.99, that's a 15% increase. All right, so that's it, a 15% increase. If you have an adjustable rate mortgage and it's at 2%, let's just say they're going to raise it to 2.5%. That's a 25% increase. All right, so that might happen. Don't get me wrong, but don't just go away from your adjustable rate just to lock in a fixed because you're thinking rates are going to go up to 10%. I also want to show you this right here. Right here. All right. The concern among economists is that higher rates will prompt homeowners to keep their low rate mortgage rather than trade up for better properties. As rates approach 5%, the risk of the phenomenon known as rate lock grows. People are hesitant to sell their current home to go into something else when the rates are higher because it's going to cost them more. And here's what I wanted to point out. A 1% point increase in interest rates, a 1 percentage point increase in rates can lead to a reduction in home sales of 7 to 8%, National Association of Realtors. Now, after that shenanigans with the other guy from the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, in the beginning of the financial crisis where he said there's no problem, it was just bad. It's hard. I just take this all with a grain of salt, but inherently makes sense. Interest rates go up, prices go down. That's just the nature of the beast. And the prices in this case are going to be real estate. I completely agree with that. That doesn't mean the house you're looking at is going to drop in price. But if you're a first-time home buyer and now you're like, I need to get in there for rates go up, or not even a first-time home buyer, just a home buyer. Like, I better hurry up before rates go up. Remember, as rates go up, the prices go down. There's less demand for those homes. Less demand means the price drops as well. I'm just telling you right now, before you make a foolish bid on a home because the rates are going up and you're sweating, you're like, oh my goodness, they're going from 4.55 to 4.61. Just remember, my friends, rates go up, prices will go down. What the NAR, National Association of Realtors, is already saying, they're worried about rate lock. People are less likely to sell their property, which is going to decrease demand as well, which means that people who do need to get a property for relocation or whatever are going to be not going to be that much more demand out there because people are afraid of the interest rates going up. They'll say, I'll just stick in my home, not likely to sell it, which means they're not looking for another home, which means at the end of the day, there's less demand. On top, the rates going up could mean you got a more affordable house from a pure cost perspective. I'd much rather have paying a higher interest rate and a lower price and vice versa, by the way. All right, because don't forget, if we can get you to buy low, that means later on you can sell higher more easily. Property taxes are based on lower prices as well. So I'd much rather have a low price. And then your mortgage is based on the price of the home as well. So if we can get, so 3 winners, was that triplet winner. Higher price, lower prices means lower mortgage, lower property taxes, easier to pay that puppy off over time as well. So I'm not saying it's good, bad, or I'm indifferent about it because there's nothing I can do about it. But at the end of the day, just proceed with caution before you make a foolish bid on a home to purchase it because you're like, oh, rates are going up, it's going to cost me. It might not. It might. I mean, everything, the situation dictates. It depends on where you are. But at the end of the day, rates going up will not necessarily cost you. You could see reflected in a lower price. And if the seller isn't willing to negotiate, you just got to turn around and walk away. Say, look, rates are going up, man. It's cost me more as a percentage of my payment to basically finance this home because the interest rates are higher. So I pay more interest than I was in premium or principal payment. So for me to be even here, you got to drop the price $15,000. It's not a bad negotiating tool, my friends. Just try it, see what happens. And then you can show them this article. Say, look, the NAR, National Association of Realtors, says for every 1% increase in interest rates, the price can drop 7 to 8%. Now, they'll keep going. So far, price gains have shown little sign of slowing. The Case-Shiller National Home Price Index, and again, I'm a big fan of Robert Shiller over at Yale. He's a pretty prominent guy in financial data mining, that's for sure, which measures typical home prices across the nation, rose 6.3% in February, up from a 6.1 year-over-year increase in January. So the home on the entirety of the United States right now certainly isn't dropping, but a stretch of the imagination. Think about it. What has everybody been saying since, basically for the longest time? That interest rates have to go up. All right, so everybody's been waiting for interest rates to go up. Now, Interest rates have started going up. What does that do? Well, that is going to get people to buy quickly, which is going to increase demand so they can lock in their low interest rate. That's what they're trying to do. You get that excess demand, you're going to see a nice bump up in prices, which is exactly what I'm sure is what's happened over the last year. Now all of a sudden the demand tapers off because the people who were going to buy are. Remember the cash for clunkers thing? That all that did is it kind of gave a quick influx of brand new stuff that was going to the market that was already going to go into the market anyway in terms of clunkers cars. It didn't do anything for economic. It did nothing. All it did is took people who were not necessarily going to bring their car in for 3 or 4 more months. They got some money, so it gave them incentive to say, "I'll just get rid of it right now." It did nothing in the overall scheme of things. As people got a sniff, oh, rates going up, I better go buy. You got a big massive demand going to these homes. The prices don't need to drop and demand is high. People lock in their homes at the low rate. Now that demand has basically been, already gone through the cycle, demand is going to be less, the rate's going to be higher, more sellers are going to be desperate. There's going to be a drop most likely in the price of the mortgage, of the house. I don't know if that will come to fruition for you specifically, but certainly could. So just play the game for what it's worth. Buying a house is a big flipping deal, my friends. And if you don't do it strategically, you could be in a world of hurt, especially if you're leveraged to the hill. All right. Hope this helps. Don't sweat this stuff on mortgage interest rates going higher. It's just not a big deal at this stage. Inflation, yeah, the economy's humming. No getting around that. Inflation, though, at the end of the day, isn't draconian like it was in the late 70s and early 80s. It's just not. Now, at the end of the day, yeah, there's some issues on the horizon with interest rates going up, but not anything that you need to all of a sudden lock in at the cost of $20,000 on closing costs just because you're worried about the interest rates. All right. Don't forget the thumbs up are always helpful for sure. Thumbs up. Don't forget to put comments, subscribe down there. See that little red thing that says subscribe here, and then click on that bell to be notified of future content. We'll see you next time on the Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel, guys. And don't forget to go to that website at heritagewealthplanning.com. Thanks now. Bye-bye.